The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network presents A Self-Advocate's Guide to the Americans with Disabilities Act. What are some holes in the ADA and how are they fixed? Sometimes the ADA does not work on certain people or places. They might not have to follow the ADA. We call these things holes in the ADA. Here are some of the big holes in the ADA. What does the ADA say about transgender people? There are lots of different genders, but some people think there are only two. When people are born, the doctor usually says it's a boy or it's a girl. The doctor says this based on what someone's body looks like. But sometimes the doctor is wrong. You don't have to be a boy or girl just because of what your body looks like. Sometimes a person who was told she was a boy is actually a girl. Transgender means your gender is different than people thought when you were born. For example, Rowan is transgender. When Rowan was born, everyone thought he was a girl, but Rowan knew he was a boy. Rowan told people that he was a boy. Now, he lives his life as a man. When the ADA got written, doctors thought being transgender was a disability, but the ADA said that being transgender doesn't count as a disability. Doctors also thought being gay, bisexual, or a lesbian was a disability, but the ADA said that being gay, bisexual, or a lesbian doesn't count as a disability, so these groups didn't get rights from the ADA. Some gay, bisexual, lesbian, and transgender people also have disabilities. They still get rights for those disabilities. What does the ADA say about substance use disorders? A substance use disorder is when someone takes a lot of drugs. They take drugs for a long time. Their body feels like it needs the drugs to stay alive, so they keep taking the drugs even if they want to stop. Some drugs like alcohol or cigarettes are legal. Other drugs, like cocaine, are against the law. Doctors say that substance use disorders are a disability, but the ADA only gives rights to some people with substance use disorders. It only gives them to people who use legal drugs. People who use drugs that are against the law don't get ADA rights. They only get rights if they also have other disabilities. Recovering is when someone with a substance use disorder stops taking drugs. But recovering is hard. They may need lots of help. The ADA says that people who are recovering get rights. They get rights even if the drugs they used were against the law. For example, Kathy used to use heroin. Heroin is a drug that is against the law. Her old boss fired her for using heroin. This was not against the law. Kathy stopped using heroin. This made her body feel very bad. Kathy takes medicine to help her body feel better. The medicine is called methadone. Her new boss wants to fire her for taking methadone. This is against the law. What does the ADA say about religious places? The ADA does not work for religious buildings or groups. Places like mosques, churches, or synagogues don't have to be accessible. Religious groups can keep you out of their religion because of your disability. Sometimes a religious group will share their building with a business. They might share their building with a daycare or a bookstore. The business isn't religious, so their part of the building needs to be accessible. What does the ADA say about old buildings? The ADA does not work for some old buildings. Some buildings were built before the ADA. It may be too hard to make them accessible, so those buildings don't have to be accessible. But sometimes old buildings get new parts, or it may be easy to make the building accessible. Then, the building has to become accessible. What does the ADA say about private places? The ADA does not work in private places, like your friend's house. Your friend's house does not have to be accessible. Your friend can choose to not let you in because of your disability. That would just make them a bad friend, but they wouldn't be breaking the law. Do airplanes have to follow the ADA? No, they do not. Airplanes follow another law called the Air Carrier Access Act. It says what rights people with disabilities have in airplanes. That law got made before the Americans with Disabilities Act, so airplanes do not have to follow the ADA. When do Title II and Title III not work? Title II says governments have to make things accessible for people with disabilities. Title III says the same thing about public places. They also say they have to help us get effective communication. But sometimes, governments and public places don't have to follow the ADA. This happens if what we need is too hard. Governments or public places can say helping us would be too hard. Here are some reasons they might say that. Because it would cost too much money. Because it would make the place we need to go less safe. Because there aren't enough people working there to help us. Governments or public places can also say helping us is too big a change. That means helping us would make the place or service into something different. We wouldn't be getting the same things as non-disabled people, and it might change what non-disabled people get too. For example, Tyree is autistic. They want to go to a concert. Tyree needs some changes to make the concert accessible. They need the music to not be too loud. They need the space to not be too crowded. All these things would change the concert too much. The concert wouldn't be like a concert anymore. People go to concerts to listen to loud music. They go to concerts to dance with big crowds of people. So the people at the concert wouldn't get what they came for. There is no way to make the concert accessible for Tyree, so they decide not to go. They watch the concert on TV later instead. What are the problems with doctors and the ADA? Sometimes, doctors think they don't need to follow the ADA. They think they know what is best for people with disabilities, so they might not give us our rights. One big way that happens is with organ transplants. An organ transplant is when a doctor takes an organ, like a heart, from one person. Then, they put that organ in a different person. The person getting the organ usually needs it to stay alive. They might die if they don't get an organ transplant. Some doctors think that people with disabilities should not get organ transplants. There aren't enough organs for everyone to get one, so doctors might think only non-disabled people should get organs. They may think people with disabilities matter less. They may think our lives are not worth living. The ADA says that is against the law. Keeping disabled people from getting organ transplants is discrimination, but some doctors keep doing this. Most people think that doctors know what's best for everyone, so they don't tell doctors to stop. ASAN thinks that doctors need to follow the ADA. What are the problems with the ADA and websites? There are a lot of websites that don't follow the ADA. Here are some ways websites don't follow the ADA. Screen readers don't work on some websites, so blind people can't read those websites. Some websites don't have captions on pictures. Videos might not have subtitles either. Captions or subtitles on websites might not make sense. They get written by a computer and not a person. The ADA happened before most people used websites. It is hard to know which websites need to follow the ADA. People asked the courts to help. Different courts said different things. So a lot of websites don't follow the ADA. ASAN thinks that all websites need to follow the ADA. The ADA Amendments Act. Why did the ADA Amendments Act happen? The ADA Amendments Act was a list of changes to the ADA. It changed the ADA in 2008. Before that, courts were bad at deciding who had a disability. They told some people that they didn't really have disabilities, so a lot less people got ADA rights. How did the ADA Amendments Act fix this? The ADA Amendments Act did a few things to fix this. It made a big list of things that counted as disabilities in the ADA. It wasn't a list of disabilities. It was a list of things that disabilities make it hard to do. For example, seeing, reading, hearing, breathing, eating, thinking, working. It was a long list. It made more things count as disabilities. That means more people get ADA rights. It told courts to focus more on discrimination. Before, courts spent more time trying to decide who counted. They argued about if someone had a disability or not. Now, they need to focus on discrimination. They need to decide if discrimination happened or not. Some people with disabilities need help doing things. With help, they can do the same things as non-disabled people. They may even look like they don't have disabilities anymore. Some courts got confused. The court said they didn't actually have disabilities. The court said they shouldn't get ADA rights. But getting help doesn't take away our disabilities. When courts said someone didn't have disabilities, it hurt them. They lost their rights. They stopped getting help. It was a big problem. The ADA Amendments Act fixed that problem. It says getting help doesn't take away our disabilities. It made sure we can get the same help for as long as we need. What does the ADA Amendments Act mean for me? The ADA Amendments Act mostly helps you if you need to go to court. It means the court might help you more than before. The ADA Amendments Act made things more fair for some people with disabilities. It said that more things counted as disabilities. It made things more fair for people who only have a disability for a short time. It made things more fair for people who don't always look disabled, like autistic people. What is Olmstead? Olmstead v. LC was a big court case. It was about the ADA and living in the community. People just call it Olmstead for short. Lots of people with disabilities get forced into institutions to get services. They get told they can only get services in an institution. In 1999, 2 women were living in an institution. Their names were Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson. They didn't want to live in an institution. They wanted to live in the community. Lois and Elaine said the ADA gave them the right to live in the community. Title II of the ADA said that people with disabilities have rights. We have the right to go to the same places as non-disabled people. We have the right to get the same services. But when we are in institutions, we can't go to the same places. We can't get the same services. So Lois and Elaine said they had a right to live in the community. They fought for their rights from the ADA. They went to the Supreme Court to fight for their rights. The Supreme Court is the biggest court in the United States. They have the final say on how laws work. The Supreme Court said that Lois and Elaine were right. Olmstead means that you have a right to live in the community. If the government says you can only get services in an institution, they are wrong. You can get services in the community. But Olmstead is not a law. It is a court case. That means you might have to go to court to get your Olmstead rights. Lots of people are still fighting for their Olmstead rights. You can learn more about Olmstead at www.ada.gov/Olmstead. The website has tools to help you fight for your rights. Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. For more information, visit our website, autisticadvocacy.org.